Hey everyone, it's Luca Volpini, the Cash Consigliere, and today we're going to talk about something very important: financial planning for engaged and married couples. One of the things that I hear the most from clients when I sit down with them is that we'll figure it out as we go. The truth is, figuring it out as you go will lead to lots of stress, sleepless nights, and fights. If we're looking at engaged and married couples, financial troubles are actually the number one cause for divorce, not just in South Africa, but in the whole world. And that is why I believe that the best wedding gift you can give to your spouse or your partner is not just the ring. It's actually a proper financial plan that the two of you have bought into together and that you understand. So now, for this example, we're going to choose a real life example where we have a couple that's engaged, they're getting married end of the year, they're both 30 years old, they've had no financial planning done in the past. So I'm going to take you through how the meeting with them would go. So to start off with, we need to set the vision. And this is where I'll ask the clients, what is your dream life? Because if we're being honest, what's the point of doing a plan? You're trying to get to your goals, your dream life. We don't plan to have a mediocre life. So the first question we always ask, okay, you're obviously getting married. Do you want kids? If so, how many kids do you want? Okay, you want 3 kids. That's awesome. I love big families. Now, the first thing you've got to take into account with your kids is what sort of schooling do you want them to have? Do you want them to go to public school or private schooling? You want them to go to private schooling. Awesome. Now, we must remember that private schooling in South Africa will cost anywhere between 6 to 12K per month per child. So that's something we have to always remember. The next thing we must think about is your housing. Where do you want to live? Do you want to rent an apartment? Do you want to live in a flat? Do you want to live in a estate? You want to own your own property in Bryanston. That's really awesome. Okay, so if you're going to have a family of 5, you're going to need a home of at least 4 million Rand to have a nice living situation. In South Africa, if we look at it, that's going to cost you about 40K per month in bond repayments for a period of 20 years. We need to take that into account. The next thing we need to determine now are, what sort of cars do you guys want to have? Do you want to both have your own car? I assume that you do. Cars these days will be anything from about 7 to 12K for financing. We need to take that into our budget as well. We now need to look at, okay, what are the nice things you want to do? Do you want to go on holidays? Do you want to travel overseas or just locally? You want to go overseas every 2 years. I'm sure we'd all love to do things like that. Now, take into mind that a trip for 2 overseas will cost you about 50,000 Rand. So, what is it going to cost you for a family of 5? And if you want to do that every 2 years, you need to accumulate those savings over time. And then I think another very important thing that both members of the couple need to be on board with is, what does your dream retirement look like? Because if you are on different pages with that, it's going to cause problems. So, what's your dream retirement? Do you want to retire at the standard age, which is about 65, or do you want to retire early? I'm sure we'd all like to. Okay, you want to retire at 60 years old. That's a good goal to go towards. You want to earn an income of 60K after tax in retirement. Now, if we take into account things like inflation, living expenses, to be able to earn 60K per month in retirement, you're going to need to have saved up roughly 15 million Rand, maybe even closer to 20, come that time of retirement. So now that we've set up this whole dream here, we need to determine, okay, how are we going to get to this point? This is where we go to step number 2, which is building a budget. Now, you said you've got those 3 kids that you want to put through private schooling. If we take the average, that's 6 to 12K, let's just round it off to 8K. 3 kids, that's going to be 24K per month, plus an additional 60 to 120K per child if you want them to go to university. That's something we need to remember. That house that you want to live in, that 4 million Rand house, as we said, that's going to be 40,000 Rand a month, bond repayments, and that's before your rates, levies, and taxes. So we must also think about that. Your lifestyle that you want to live. We already said you want to go overseas every 2 years. That's money we've got to be putting away. Maybe you want to go to gym. You want to take the family out to eat dinner quite often. You want to buy nice clothes, nice things. For a family of 5, you're probably looking between 8 and 10K per month to be putting away in order to do things like that. Those 2 cars that you said you wanted to have, If we take the average once again between 712, let's just say it's 9K a month financing for 2 cars, that's going to be roughly 18K per month that you guys are going to have to be putting away. Your your retirement, that's also something we're going to have to include into our budget. We'll get to that at a later stage. Now, if we're looking at all these expenses here, these are just the necessities. We can add something like medical aid, which, if we're being realistic, for a family of 4 or 5 people, that's probably going to also cost you about 8K per month if you're lucky, and that's before gap cover, which will be an additional 1 to 2,000 Rand a month. So now, just to take care of these necessities as part of your budget, we're going to need a household disposable income of about 100 to 120K per month. Now, this is your disposable income. This is what you need to be able to pay the expenses. So this is not what you're earning before tax. This needs to be after. Now, if one person in the couple earns this, that's great. Whatever the other spouse earns is a bonus that you can do other things with. But you at least need to have the whole household earning this. This is a big problem in South Africa. The average couple is only earning about 60K a month between the two of them. We can now see why people have very high debt crisis in South Africa, because we all want this dream life, but we don't earn the money to actually do it. That's why it's important to put a plan in place to get here. Now, you might be looking at this and saying, I don't even know where to start. I can't afford all of this. And that's why we need to go to step number 3, which is the trade offs. This is where we now sit down with the clients and we need to have those difficult questions. We need to discuss, okay, do you want a bigger house or do you want your kids to go to private schooling? We'll determine that. Do you want to go on that overseas holiday every 2 years, or do you want to retire on time? What's more important to you? Maybe go on the holiday every 4 years instead of every 2 years. We'll make those plans in place. And the final one is, if one of you stops working to raise the family, I think that's a very noble thing. And I think it's something that most people actually want to do, but we can't really do it anymore. But if you plan properly, it is something you'll be able to do. But now we need to make sure that you are able to still function as a family should someone do that. That takes me to step number 4 as well. We've built up this dream life. We've got a nice plan in place, but how do we protect that? So step 4 is the protection. A big problem in South Africa is retrenchment. If one of you loses your job, we've already established that your household expenses are anywhere between 100 and 120K a month. If one spouse loses the job, maybe it's the breadwinner, maybe it's not. How are you able to still function and pay off all these costs? Do you have to make changes? You don't want to, and that is why it is essential that you have an emergency fund where I would recommend having three months expenses saved up. So for this example, you would want about 300K in there. Obviously, you keep building on that even when you get to 300K. Hopefully, you never have that emergency. You can use these funds for something else. Medical crisis. If you don't have medical aid or gap cover, any medical crisis can put you out of hundreds of thousands of rands. Just think about it. An MRI is usually around 30,000 Rand. To spend a night in a hospital is a couple thousand Rand as well. If you're in the hospital for 2-3 weeks, just do the math to yourself where you're going to end up. That is why it is essential to have things like medical aid and gap cover in place. And I think the most traumatic thing a family can actually experience is the death of a spouse. Now, this will be very emotionally traumatic, but imagine you've got financial trauma added on top of that. The family is already grieving the loss of a loved one, and now they're wondering where they're going to go from here. And that is why, if you have a family, if you have dependents, it is a non-negotiable that you must have life cover. You need to have a valid will. I don't even want to get started on what happens to you if you die without a valid will in place. That's a video for another day that we'll do. You need to have a proper estate plan in place. Now, a lot of people don't really know what estate planning is, but we need to take into account you've got that 4 million Rand home, 40,000 Rand a month bond payments. If one of the spouses dies, that bond payment doesn't go away. School fees don't go away, or your other expenses. How are you going to make sure that your loved ones can still live the life that you wanted them to have? That is why you need to sit down with someone like me, a financial advisor, that will take you through this estate plan to give not only yourself, but your whole family peace of mind that should something happen to you today, tomorrow your family will be okay. Now, we don't want to make this all doom and gloom. So we're going to move on to the next step, which is how we actually build the lifestyle we want, how we build our wealth. And that is our investment roadmap. So there's quite a few different things we need to talk about here. The first one, probably the most important one, is your retirement savings. Earlier, you said you wanted to retire at 60. You want to earn 60K after tax in retirement. Now, we discussed at the beginning of this, you're 30 years old, you've done no financial planning in the past. I've got bad news for you. In order to get to your 15 mil by the time that you are 60, that's going to equal saving about 20K per month. And that's even assuming that you get 10% growth per annum with your contribution increasing by 10% each year. You also need to put your kids through school. Now, that's something you need to start saving for from the time that they're born, essentially. To send a child through private schooling and university in South Africa, you're looking at about 1.5 million rand per child. So you're probably going to have to save about 5K from the day that they're born to be able to sustain them through the whole way through university. And then the final part of our investment roadmap is our wealth building. This is how we ensure we keep the lifestyle we want. So here we said it's probably going to cost you about 8 to 10K for your lifestyle. That's what you want to be putting away into some sort of investment vehicle as well. Now, coming back to the retirement, you might be saying, shucks, I don't have 20K a month to put to my retirement. How do we do this? So this is a problem many people in South Africa face. They don't start early enough. Should you start earlier, this becomes a lot easier. Just by starting a few years earlier, let's say when you get your first job, you're 22, 23 years old, all these investment goals here, you can actually reach the same goal, maybe even better, with contributing less than half of the amount that I've stated here. If you want me to go more into more deeper detail and make another video for you where we actually discuss how starting earlier can help you reach these same goals, specifically with retirement savings, how contributing to a retirement fund can actually get SARS to give you tax refunds, which you can then use for other investments. Like this video, share it, mention something in the comments about what you would like me to speak about, and then I'll love to do a video like that. Another thing that will help, if you work for a company that has a pension fund, this full burden doesn't fall on you. Some of the burden goes on them as well, and that can go a long way to helping you meet your retirement goals. So if you are behind and you work for a company that doesn't have a pension fund, you might need to consider looking for another place of employment, but that's something that you must discuss with your advisor as well. Now, I understand there's a lot of big numbers here. There's a lot of scary numbers here, a lot to take in. You might be thinking, where do I even start? So I've broken it down into 3 different stages for you, and that's step 6, which is our action plan. Now, just because there's 3 different stages doesn't mean that you start them at different times. You still need to start them all today from when we start our financial plan. It's just going to help you at different stages of your life. So the short-term part is your emergency fund. It's getting your life cover in place. We spoke about what happens if you lose your job. With your life cover policies, you can add something called income protector, which should you get a disability or an impairment, you can insure your full salary and you can still continue to live earning that same salary even if you don't work. You also need to get cover for dread disease and disabilities, because should that happen to you, do you want to go into these investments in order to install a ramp in your home? Maybe you're in a wheelchair the rest of your life, you can't go up the stairs. If you don't have medical aid, how are you going to pay for all that stuff? Medical aid doesn't even cover it all. That is why it is essential to add those things. You need to get your will done, your estate planning. The medium term, that's your education fund for your kids, where we said you're going to put 5K a month in. That's obviously something you start when they're born, but it's going to affect you in the medium stage of your life. And the long term is your retirement planning and your wealth building. So you start today, but you're only going to reap these rewards in the big future. So, like I said, there's a lot to unpack here, there's a lot to discuss. As I also said, the earlier you start, the easier it is for you. So it's important for us to remember that money doesn't just build wealth, it builds marriages when handled in the right way. So my advice to you, if you're getting married or if you're already married, ask yourselves the questions. What's important to us? What is the life that we want to live? How much is it going to cost us? What are we willing to compromise on? What are our non negotiables? And how much do we have to invest in order to get there? Should you have any other questions, once again, please feel free to leave something in the comment, message me personally, and I hope to hear from you guys. I would love to keep making videos like this, so let me know what you want to see. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Did it stop? No. All right.